actually, if you think of yourself, who are you? Who am I? Okay, I think we've all wondered at some point in our life. Well, we're actually a combination of mind and body. Right? We consist of a mind, we consist of a body. You may want to add soul, but then the Buddhists would say, no, sorry. Well, it depends on how you define soul, but basically Buddhists don't accept an entity other than mind and body. And the mind is so intricate, there's so many different minds that arise, they can give us the impression of something very solid there. Like many pixels in a computer, right? Many different pixels. If you don't look close enough, you see a very solid picture there. I don't know whether you've been to Dharamsala. There's a very nice, where I live, when you walk down the street where I live, there's one hotel that put up like a mosaic with little stones, and when you're far enough, you see His Holiness the Dalai Lama. If you get closer, there's little stones. Right? So this is a good example. To me, it's like, when we look a little closer, things are not as solid as they seem, but from afar, without getting close enough, oh, very, very clear, Dalai Lama. So the same with our mind. We have a very strong sense, I'm like this, I'm like that. But that's just different awarenesses, right? Popping up and doing their thing, and there's a thought here, there's a thought there, especially with regard to ourself. We're just a collage of different thoughts. Our sense of self is actually just a collage. I'm like this, I'm like that, I'm like this. And then someone tells us, oh, you're really bright. And we add that, oh, I'm really bright. And then someone tells us, oh, you're such a nut, such a nutnik. Nutnik? You're such a nutnik. Okay, oh right, I'm a nutnik too. Okay, so add this to the collage. And that gives us a very strong sense of, oh, this is me. Okay? But again, it's just different thoughts that we reinforce every now and then. So a collage of who we are. So basically it's a body, of course, that's ever changing, aging all the time. And then a mind. Alright. But, as it says, so it's the mind that is responsible for all our happiness and suffering. Without a mind to interpret it, we wouldn't be happy, we wouldn't be unhappy, and the one thing we really want is to be happy, so we need a mind for that, and it comes from the mind. Alright, so it makes sense that this is the mind that translates healthy situations, external circumstances that are positive, they translate those into happiness. It's the mind that does so. Also when we're sick and things go wrong, well, we need a mind to interpret that or to translate that into unhappiness and suffering. Right? Like I said, there have been studies like that. I mentioned this in the past in a different context, but the studies where people were exposed to different degrees of stress, like stressful situations, and one group was told, this is really good for you, this is good for you, this helps you, this is a challenge, it helps you to grow, and another group was told, this is really bad for you, this kind of stressful situation is going to make you sick. And as you may expect, the result of the experiment was that those who were told this was really good for them, they felt challenged, they felt motivated, they felt encouraged, they wanted more, and they worked harder. So they interpreted it as something happy. It's like they translated that into happiness. It's something, an opportunity to grow, while the rest interpreted it as something harmful. And they felt tired, and they felt exhausted. So the situation was the same for both groups. But for one, it became a cause of happiness and elation, and for the other, it became a cause of suffering. So it was very obvious that it's just a translation. It's how the mind translates every situation. That gives us so much freedom, right? You have an obnoxious neighbor or not? Who cares, right? See, this person has a challenge, has an opportunity to practice patience. Wow, I'm lucky I have that neighbor. Or see it in a different way and, I don't know, have court cases and what have you, right? Okay. So therefore the mind has the power to determine pleasure and displeasure. It's totally up to how the mind looks at it. So it's the sole motivator of all our actions and the creator of our experiences and reality. Right? The mind is really involved in everything. in everything. I mean, if you talk about what's reality, well, there's your reality, there's my reality, and if there's another reality, what do I care? Whoops. Sorry. Thank you. Okay, thanks. What do I care? There's another reality, because it doesn't concern us. Even if there was an external reality, which Buddhists don't assert, but never mind. Has nothing to do with me. Okay. But our problem is, the mind being so powerful, our own mind being so incredibly powerful, we don't even know how powerful it is. We have no idea. Sometimes we get a bit of a sense of it, but we don't really trust it. We kind of do, but then we don't, and yeah, most of the time we don't trust it. And on top of that, we don't have much control over our mind. We don't have much control over feeling happy and avoiding problems and difficulties. So it's all about gaining more control. As in, like, you know, if you're in a plane, oh, I love these fighter planes, right? If you don't control it, and you get kind of like, now we're like in one of those fighter planes, and there's a guy with a remote control taking us here and there and everywhere and up and down. But this is about taking the control, or starting to be able to fly the plane and have a smooth ride. And it seems impossible, but you just need to look around and look at some of the lamas. Oh, they're so in control. They're so loving and so kind and so powerful at the same time. I mean, trust me, the Dalai Lama, he looks always very cuddly and sweet and loving, right? But I've seen him powerful and scary. Not scary in like nasty scary, but like, this is enough. Do this now. He's like that with the people around him. So very loving, but very strong. So the power of his love is incredible. I mean, I've seen him wrathful, and it's like, whoa. But not in a nasty or hateful way, but in a very loving way. So there's this incredible, with this control of the mind and this channeling of your mental energy, channeling it by way of love and understanding and insight and satisfaction. It's so powerful. It transforms a person like nothing else. No diet can transform. No gym can transform you like that. So no external, no food. It's only the mind that can transform people and make them so special. And we all have that potential. We just don't know how to tap into it. So this is the first step. To first learn about our mind, and then learn about the potential, etc. So in order to gain more control, think of the fighter jet we're in right now, up and down and here and there. Okay. So we need to transform the mind, an undertaking that must be preceded by understanding the mind, obviously. So, how can we gain an understanding of how to transform the mind? By gaining an understanding of the mind, which goes far beyond just academic study. Okay, first initially just gaining an understanding, but then how does this apply to myself? So, I'm sometimes thinking of a surgeon, for instance. You become like a surgeon, or you become like a scientist, basically. I don't know, somehow the example with the surgeon works well for me. So for instance, if you are told about the parts of the body as a surgeon, so you're not supposed to start cutting away, as surgeons usually do, but you're not supposed to start cutting away, but you have like, you don't have the actual organs, but you have like fake organs, you know, like a doll. You take it apart, and then you see there's the lungs, there's the heart, etc. And those fake organs, these representations of what's in the body, they help you when you look at an actual body to recognize it. So this is the same here with the study of the mind. There are certain ideas that are presented to you. They're like fake organs made of, I don't know, rubber, what have you. And then you look at the actual thing and you go, oh yeah, I recognize that in myself. Oh yes. All right, so the mind is, what they say, clear and knowing. What does that mean? My mind is clear and knowing. Are you kidding me? Right? So initially it's like, where's the liver? Which of those reddish things is the liver? Until you recognize it, and then you look at an actual liver, that it's your own mind, and you go, oh my God, that's my own anger. How interesting. Oh yeah, my anger does this, that, and the other. And we learn about what anger does, about the different afflictions. Okay, so that's the whole idea. So it goes beyond academic study. And so it is extremely important that we learn about the mind, its definitions, its divisions, different functions. And the good thing is, you learn about this, and when you start looking at your own mind, you gain such a good knowledge of your own mind that goes beyond what's in here. Of course, obviously, like a surgeon, there are kind of theoretic knowledge that is then transformed into like a practical knowledge, and then through their experience, they have so much more knowledge of what's in the textbook. Can't put it all down in a textbook. So that really shows whether someone practices the Dharma or not, because they come up with their own ideas that are the result of their own experiences. It becomes so much more fuller, and no text could describe that, because how extensive can a book be on the mind? Okay, so basically if you go beyond what's in here and you come up with your own ideas, you've really taken it to the right level. It's not just academic, you really applied it to your own mind and get a much fuller example. So it's just like it points you in the right direction, those explanations here, but in the end you try to recognize them, what you've learned, and then fully understand how your mind actually works. So only if we obtain, because, well, why? Because this does not lead to a mere intellectual understanding of the mind, its divisions, etc., but we should take it to an experiential level. Only if we obtain a first-hand knowledge of our habitual thought patterns, of the mental events that occur within specific mindsets, so all the mental events. What am I talking about, mental events? Like, there's a thought here, there's a thought there, there's grasping at this, there's experiencing this, there's judging this, there's... I mean, our mind... Honestly, in the 21st century, movies are fast, right? Much faster than those from the 40s, right? The guy's just looking at the sky forever. Now it's like, in 5 seconds, you can have a whole murder take place. But our mind is much faster. Arguably more faster than it used to be in the past, because everything is faster. So our thoughts race much faster. So it's a little bit more challenging to be mindful of your own mind, because you try to catch up. Where's my mind going now? Where's it going here and there, everywhere? So this is basically the different mental events that take place. And it's great fun. I mean, my own mind is like a funny movie. Right? It's like there's all these tricky little things, how my self-grasping, like, come on, you're most important. Yeah, you're the center of the universe. Yeah, you're very loving. Oh, you're so great. You're special. Right? It's like always there telling you, oh, you're special. Right? Oh, I'm so generous. I'm so generous. Okay, I'll do this altruistic act because I'm so altruistic. Right? It always sneaks in there, and it's really funny, actually. This is important, to look at your own mind with humor, by the way. Don't be German about it. Don't be uptight about it. This is why the Tibetans are great candidates for learning the Dharma, because they have a great sense of humor. They're very laid back, and they love a good joke. And if they are the joke, if they're the, what do you call that? The center of the joke, whatever, if they're the object that people laugh about, oh great. So the greater the Lama, the more they're able to make fun of themselves, by the way. Right? Because it's just funny, if you can see the humor in your own mind. So very important when you do all this, take it with humor. With a pinch of, have a good laugh in your own mind. So we have a tendency of being judgmental, and we want it to be positive kind of minds. It's scary when we recognize these negative states of mind. But that's like expecting when you wash your clothes, the water to be totally clean after you wore your shirt for a year without washing it. I mean, that's a little unrealistic, right? We've not really looked at our own mind, and there may be some balagan to be found there, but never mind, it's like we're looking at it, and it's like washing your clothes. The water's not going to be clear right away. There may be some dirt. But it's interesting to see. So to just be, the mind is your own petri dish. Oh, be so interested in finding these hateful kind of minds, right? Not to be like, oh, I just want the loving ones. I mean, they're loving ones too, but to expect only the good stuff and not, no. To be interested, like, oh, how interesting. Where does that aversion come from? Boy, there's some nasty jealousy there. And to not be pulled into it because they're just different states of mind. Like I said, they're all different sets of mind. They don't define you. They're awarenesses that come and go, and that are transient, as in like, they're not there all the time, they're not solidly there, however solid they feel. And it's just an experiment, like, how nice to find and get to know your own mind. And to not judge. Whatever comes is good. It's great. I laugh about my own mind. Boy, I mean, how I can make the Dharma into a big party of ego. Transform it into a great ego party. It's really fascinating how my self-grasping mind, my self-cherishing or self-centered mind is so good at it. I mean, I must admire that. Really, I must admire that self-grasping. I mean, it's a pain in the bum every now and then, or all the time actually, but the sneakiness and how it always gets to, yeah, so in that way, it's actually, it's humorous, it's funny. All right. So, but anyway, understanding them, that's the first step, gaining an understanding and knowledge of that, and then we can make changes. The better we understand it, the more we're able to make changes. And although these changes are extremely slow and gradual, extremely slow, okay, so don't expect anything quick, but they're there. They drastically improve, nonetheless, the quality of our present life. And they serve as the basis for overcoming all our shortcomings, eventually, such as anger, attachment, and ignorance. And then, of course, from a Buddhist point of view, even taking us towards liberation and Buddhahood. But maybe let's keep it in the present. Of course, that's the goal. But what's more important right now is that even right now we can make drastic changes. All right, so then what is the mind? It's a non-physical entity. Oh, great, thank you very much. We're so good at understanding physical entities, right? I mean, we've become masters of identifying atoms and waves and, I don't know, energy this and this color and that shape, etc. And now it's like non-physical. Well, it's really difficult. We're not used to this. We're living in a very material world. Unbelievable. I think this is, at this time and age, I don't think human beings have ever possessed more than we possess nowadays. Think of your possessions. Like 100 years ago, I don't think people had those possessions. Unbelievable how materialistic we are. Just thinking today, this is the first time in the history of humans, possibly, that humans have had so many possessions. Right? Anyway, so we're like totally overwhelmed by materialistic stuff. So the material has really gone to the forefront because we understand it better. It's no longer a mystery to us. We're like totally focused on the material. So to deal with something as immaterial as the mind can be actually difficult at this day and age. Unless we start making drawings of the mind and imagine it having a certain color or what have you. But actually, I think that's why we have a difficult time with the mind and an even harder time with past and future lives. But I will not leave this out. I know a lot of people don't like past and future life, but it's so important. And if you understand the mind, how could there not be a continuation of consciousness? Actually, if you understand the mind, it doesn't make sense that the mind doesn't continue on. And it is just some side effect of the body. It just doesn't make sense. But alright, it's a little early to talk about that. Alright. Okay, so, but what it says, the mind is something non-physical. Alright, now that doesn't help. Because I know what is physical, but I don't know what does it mean, non-physical. And so, therefore, it's different from the brain. Well, thank you very much. When we talk about mind in the West, we talk about my brain this, my brain that. So that doesn't help. The language we use. Oh, my brain understands. Oh, my brain is able to grasp things. It's like the brain has little hands kind of holding on to things, grasping. I mean, actually, of course, the brain is extremely important. But right now, as you're aware, hopefully of me, aware of your environment, aware of the temperature in this room, etc., that is not the brain. The brain is part of that process, but there's an actual experiencer. And we're just talking about that experiencer. That is the mind. As you experience the temperature as pleasant or unpleasant, that experiencer is called the mind. That's it. As simple as that. So as you now, all of you experience something. Like, no way you don't experience anything. You see certain things, you hear certain things. That experiencer is called the mind. It is dependent on something physical. Of course, if you poke a needle in the wrong part of your brain, you stop experiencing it. So it is dependent on that brain. Certain awarenesses, and we'll talk more about it, are dependent on the brain. Not all are, though, which accounts for out-of-body experiences, etc. But right now, as we're awake, our mind is dependent on the brain, but that doesn't mean they're the same. We depend on oxygen, but we're not oxygen. We depend on it, but that doesn't mean that we are the same as oxygen. All right. So, the mind is a non-physical entity, and so therefore it's different from the brain, depending on the brain, but not the same. It is indestructible, at all times present, and has neither a beginning nor an end. Indestructible. Can't destroy the mind. Right? You can maybe have a moment where you don't think of anything, all right? But it's not like you can stop thinking forever. Like, there's no way you can stop having awareness. You may think, well, at night when I sleep, I'm not even talking about dreams, I'm talking about deep sleep. Well, just because we don't remember that we were aware in that moment doesn't mean it didn't happen. Because there's subtler and coarser types of mind, which I mentioned at the end of this book. I'll talk a little bit about these different coarser and subtler levels. Well, the book describes those a little bit. Which accounts for the fact that when we're awake, we're not aware of the dream state or of the sleep state, and when we're asleep, we're not aware of the awakened state, because they're different types of awareness. Coarser in the case of the awakened state, subtler in the case of sleep. All right. So, mind, it says, is a subjective experiencer. Subjective experiencer. Okay, it's totally subjective. When we say, I take a subjective view on this, it's just a way of talking, right? It's just saying, I'm trying to not be emotionally involved, right? When you say, I'm trying to be subjective about it, trying to be objective about it, it's not really literally saying you're totally objective. That's like saying Israel is an independent country. It's not totally independent. Like, no way, there's no totally independent country. So we can say relative in relation to certain political freedom, relative to the fact that it's a democracy, then it doesn't depend on, I don't know, America telling them who's their prime minister, etc. From that point of view, we say it's an independent country. But is it totally independent? No, it isn't. It depends on the air of other countries, on the water of other countries. It depends on, I don't know, milk from other countries, what have you. So the point is, we say something is independent, but it's not absolutely independent. It's only in relation to something. So there is no objective perception. It's only in relation to the fact that when I'm very emotional, I perceive the situation colored by these emotions. So when I say I try to take on an objective stand, I'm trying to keep those emotions away and see it more from a perspective that maybe my neighbor also has. That's what it means. So, but actually there is no objective, objective experiencer. The mind is a subjective experiencer that always has content. Mind always has an object. That's why it's so difficult to identify the mind, because we're so busy with the objects. We're so busy with sights and sounds and thoughts and, the thoughts we have about what we think. We're thinking about sense perception, of course, takes in the environment. Of course, not the way it actually exists. So forget about blue being out there with light waves and stuff. We all know those are just light waves, and blue doesn't exist the way it appears. Sound is just sound waves and doesn't exist the way it appears. So modern physics tells us that the environment, the way we perceive it, actually doesn't exist out there. Okay. But that's not all. Our mind is not just perceiving the raw data from outside, and then because of the brain, because of how our brain works, etc., our mind has certain experiences of the external environment, but we're also thinking of the past and of the future all the time, so we're pretty busy with the different objects that appear. So there's no space, there's no attention left in the mind to recognize the experiencer. Right? So I remember reading about this by a philosopher in English, I think he's British, called Peter Russell. He's a mathematician / philosopher, and he has compared the mind to a film projector. You know, like these old-fashioned film projectors, where you have like the machine, and then there's a light inside, and the film runs past that light, and it's projected on a screen, right? So this is actually the example of the film projector in the mind. I think it's a nice analogy. Our mind is like that film projector. The light is like when we talk about the mind as being clear, like anything can appear to it. So it has that aspect of clarity, as like light illuminates something. So our mind illuminates objects, as in like it experiences objects. They appear to the mind. And so when you have that film projector, actually the way it appears is as if the picture, the film, is over there. But actually that's just an illusion. The film is right there with the film projector. It's part of it. And because of the light illuminating it, gives you the impression it's over there. It's like that with our mind. They're just objects appearing to the mind, which we believe they're distant to our mind. Oh, it's over there. And the impression we get is that the object that appears, it's not appearing because it's part of our mind, but because we see it as it is. Oh, it's over there, and everyone perceives it that way. And how weird you don't like Israeli music. That's really weird. It's really beautiful music. How could you not like it? Right? Or how could you like Hindi music? Right? When you come to India first and they play it really loud on the buses and they go, how can they drive all day long with that music? Because there's a sense it's objectively horrible or objectively beautiful, and I just perceive it the way it is. Now you may say, no, but we say beauty lies in the eye of the beholder. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. We have those really clever sayings, but we don't act upon them. Because this is how I look at it. Our perception of reality has different levels. There's a very coarse perception of reality, a very intellectual perception of reality. This is where we, for instance, when we say beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder, oftentimes it's just that intellectual sense. It kind of intellectually makes sense. But there's also a much deeper, a much deeper sense of like, this is what it's like. It comes much more from the belly. I don't know how to really put it, but it's not as intellectual, but more innate, like an innate sense. And that governs our actions. The sense of like, there's really an objective beauty there. Oh, this is really beautiful, in and of itself. So that sense governs our actions. It's not our sense, oh, beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder. Because we still go, how can they like that? They're weird. Right? Those people are weird that they're like that. There's this sense because we feel there's this objective world. And I see exactly what's there. Okay? But actually, we all have our individual, we are our own individual film projector with an individual, what do you call that? Like a, what is this thing that runs there? There's a technical term for it, I'm pretty sure. The film, basically, right? That film that runs. So that's just part. So the objects we perceive are totally subjective. And just because I call this red, and you call this red, we may think we see the same thing. But how do I know that what you perceive as red, I don't perceive as yellow, and we just happen to call it both red, right? How do we know? We may perceive something totally different. Anyway, we do anyway. Usually I say this as like part of a joke, so some of you have heard me say that, but it's actually true. I see something right now you have never seen. And you see something right now I have never seen. My face and your face. The reflection of your face in the mirror is not your face. And the photograph of your face is not your face. So if you have a long nose, you may be able to see the top of your nose. That's about it. If you got like puffy cheeks, maybe see those. But other than that, no, you've never seen your own face. So right now, we all see something that no one else sees. right? Well, first of all, I don't see and you see something when you look at me, but also from your perspective. Taking it from your perspective, we all see something slightly differently.